Hey, Catherine, how you doing? Thank you so much for kicking things off. Now, I was reading through your writing, and I've actually read through this. This is my third time going through this, and I'm really fascinated with your writing because you really touch on a very sensitive topic, and that is altering the way an individual looks with the intent of improving those looks, presumably for the intent of ultimately selling products. Um, and I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying, and so does a good cross section of the graphic design community. There are those that feel that an image should not be edited. What we look like is what we look like. You talk to advertisers, and they say, well, wait a second. All we're doing is enhancing the way this individual looks for greater public perception. Okay, so that the image is more pleasing to look at to the general public, which of course ties to, in a lot of cases, advertising and selling products. That's why we see such heavy retouching techniques in things like selling makeup, movies, anything that, clothing, etc. So I think that you're really onto something with your writing, and feeling uncomfortable about this is one thing. Personally, I'm going to tell you, I do a lot of retouching work when I do work, if I'm subbed out work for advertising for magazine ads or brochures. I have no problem doing extensive retouching work. Um, and the way I look at it is that I'm not trying to stretch the truth. I'm trying to enhance things. And I think that to a high degree, as a graphic designer, we need to understand that that's our job, is to enhance visual communication, not to alter the judgment of any individual looking at the work. Okay, are you following me? I certainly understand somebody's convictions that they do not want to. I know designers that refuse to do retouch work on individuals for personal reasons. Most has to do with ethics. So it's really, I just want to say, I mean, you're more than welcome to build your own philosophy here. Okay, I just think it's really impressive that you have the foresight to look at this and say, hey, wait a second, I'm kind of seeing a little issue with this process. Okay, okay, I just wanted to mention that because you really did a good job describing your thoughts on this project. So that said, I do want to mention this: there are very few images that you see out there that aren't retouched. Okay, very few, probably none. Now we talk about the difference between enhancing an image and retouching an image. So every image you see in a public setting is going to have some sort of image adjustment attached to it. Okay, so whether it improves the contrast, redistributes the color values, whatever the situation is, there's all. I mean, in close to 30 years, I have never ever received a image that didn't need adjustments. Okay, so there's a difference between basic image adjustment and retouching. So I think that your comments pretty much specifically refer to retouching. And more specifically, refer to changing the shapes of the attributes of people's faces. Okay, that said, all day long you can remove blemishes and enhance the sparkle in the eye, whiten teeth, and do things like that, I think, without any ethical ramifications, right? So to a good extent, that's what you'll be concentrating on in your retouching work throughout your design career. It's not pretty specialized position to be in a agency that does this kind of retouching, where you're actually changing the shape of people's faces, removing fat, etc., etc. So that's a whole nother can of worms, right? Enough of that, Michael. Let's move on to the work at hand. And I think that you've done a good job here. I've got your work up right here. And the reason I mentioned adjustment layers is because I can see this is your start image, right? And the thing with this start image is that it really needs an adjustment layer. Right now it's washed out. What does washed out mean? Washed out means that there's not a good even distribution of tone. So the darkest darks and the lightest lights don't have a whole lot of variety. And that's why I say that just about every image that'll come across your studio will need enhancements, and most of them need adjustment layers regarding contrast. This is no exception. I think the first thing I would do in this image is do a nice levels adjustment layer to improve the contrast. Take a look at the histogram. The histogram is a great way to determine where the tonal variation lies within an image. And so my recommendation is definitely to do um, an image adjustment, do an adjustment layer before you start any retouching work at all. And then, of course, we'll take a look at your layers when the PSD is submitted later on this week. But overall, I think you've really done a great job, and I think you can really see the difference between the start. There's a lot of blemishes and things. And then over here, is this kind of midway. Here, it looks like you did apply an adjustment layer, but we can clearly see the glitter in the eyes, the whitening of the teeth. Several other areas, I think that you really did a good job in changing some of the characteristics. So, and from an experimental standpoint, I think you've done a fantastic job. From a technical standpoint, my recommendation is to keep in mind that just about every image you'll ever receive as a designer needs some sort of an adjustment layer applied to it. Okay, if you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'll be glad to make any clarifications. Okay, thank you very much.